Hey, it is Wednesday, February 25th, 2026. Welcome to Direct Line Live. Our special guest this week is investigative reporter, journalist, television producer Scott Wheeler. Welcome to the show, Scott. Now, our hosts tonight are Jackie Saxton, the hostess with the mostest, and Mark Unkefer. Take it away, guys.
I like that you don't get a tagline, Mark. Scott, thank you so much for joining us. Investigative journalism is something that really has come back into the forefront recently with mistrust in mainstream media at an all-time high. And then you have people like Nick Shirley coming onto the scene and really, putting that emphasis back on investigative journalism and citizen journalism. So can you talk about how you got involved in investigative journalism as a career?
Well, I thought I was going to be a football coach, and in my local, where I was in college in Emporia, Kansas, at Emporia State, the school paper and the local paper were very left, and so I'd been reading about these guys at Dartmouth who started what was called the Dartmouth Review, a conservative newspaper. And it turns out it was Dinesh D'Souza and Laura Ingram, who themselves went on to better things. But I was reading about it, and so I launched a community newspaper that focused on the college, on the university. And I had already finished school, and my football eligibility was over, so I was waiting for my wife to finish, and launched the newspaper, and realized that I really didn't like journalism. So I hung it up, and then I got an odd offer to start doing radio and radio news. And I realized I really did not like that. And so I kept thinking, what could I do to make this better? And it was the first term of the Clinton administration. And we were hearing all these stories coming out of Arkansas about Whitewater and the Mena Airport and all that stuff. So I said, I'm going to take this show on the road and broadcast from location. And I went and started investigating the Clinton corruption in Arkansas and in Washington, D.C., broadcasting from the road. And that's where I met up with these guys from NET, and they said, we need an investigative journalist. So I took that job thinking it was going to be temporary. We'd do this. Clinton would lose the 96 election, and I'd go back to football. Didn't work out that way.
So you were part of moving forward to that period. As I recall, you were very instrumental in breaking some of the early stories about China's influence, the China financing of the Clinton administration. Tell me a little bit about how you came across that story and how you developed that. And we probably should describe it for our audience, what exactly you came up with.
Well, at the time, it was just starting to appear in the American press that the Clinton administration had taken money, illegal donations from China. And I started talking to people I knew in intelligence and getting some information that was shocking. They were saying the president may have committed treason. And I said, I can't believe this. I know he's not a good guy, but I certainly have a hard time believing that. And so I went to China and started investigating and found that they had significant influence inside the Clinton administration, including a guy named John Wong, who had a job inside the Clinton administration, and a political appointee at the Commerce Department. And he was the bag man for a lot of money coming from China. And there was significant evidence that he may have been a Chinese intelligence agent. And no one really handled that information very well. So the aforementioned American Investigator, we produced a couple of documentaries on that, and thinking that the story was going to get legs, but it never really did, even though the New York Times picked it up. And William Safire at one point in about 98 or 99 actually said if we're to believe our own front page reporting, we'd have to conclude that President Clinton has committed treason. It still went nowhere. But I continued to investigate because they had significant assets in the United States and they were capitalizing on them. So when I left American Investigator, I went to the Washington Times and continued to investigate the China espionage operations, and found a guy named Hankaba Yu who was operating at a facility at Penn State that had defense contracts, and it was doing significant work for the Department of Defense on some weapon systems, and got a hold of him and started talking to him. And he inadvertently revealed to me that he was reporting to his former boss in China, who was working on what he described as a top secret military operation. And so there was that. And then I continued to stay on top of the China espionage operations, but also got involved in counterterrorism. Went back in the Army and did a tour, and came back and went back into journalism and continued writing about the China, the way that they have. Go ahead.
Just for our audience, I mean, to go back to the China issue, as I recall, I mean, I think we're talking about the same thing. Is the case involved a large number of straw donors? That is, people who received money and in their name made contributions when the original funds came essentially from China. Or we're talking about the same thing?
Yes, absolutely correct. They had a lot of money, and they needed people who were qualified American donors. And a lot of these people were not of means at all, and they were writing huge checks to the Democrat National Committee. And Democrats like to use that word collusion, and there was clear collusion. The Democrat Party was showing them how to launder the money. The Clinton administration was showing them how to launder the money. And so they were receiving these illegal donations while Bill Clinton was decontrolling strategic weapons technology to communist China. And there you had those two things. And while the Washington Post and the New York Times reported on those two things separately, they never put the two together. That while the Clinton administration was receiving illegal donations, and it was well established that they knew they were receiving the illegal donations, they were also decontrolling weapons technology, high-tech weapons technology to the communist Chinese. They reported on those two issues separately and never put the two together. And we actually did. And in many cases, we beat the New York Times and the Washington Post to breaking news on those investigations.
So you talked about going to China to help research and get that story. I can't imagine the Chinese take very kindly to people poking around in their business like that, the CCP. So what was that process like? Were you in any danger doing that kind of investigative research?
Well, I worked undercover inside Hamas, and I also worked undercover inside
That's a whole other topic we could go into.
The China threat wasn't nearly as nettlesome as the terrorists. So, which I'd done extensive work in that area. So but the China, you're always concerned because you never know what usually catches people in trouble or gets them killed is if you're close to something and you don't know that you are, but somebody thinks you are. And that's how you can get killed pretty easily. You're walking into something. But I took some precautions, but I think probably not being afraid helped more than anything. If you look afraid, then the bad guys know they can intimidate you. If you act like you've got, you might have a large army backing you up, then they tend to treat you with more respect.
So, but elaborate on the process. I mean, you go to China, who do you go see, and how do you approach that? I mean, I'm fascinated. I was familiar with the campaign finance piece. I didn't realize that it was possible to kind of track this story inside China as well.
Well, it's very difficult, but there were human rights activists in Hong Kong
Okay.
that were well aware of a lot of things. And so, for example, most of them didn't speak English. And so we would have a translator. What we found is we could show them pictures. And at that time, you know, it was before the internet was anywhere near China. And so there wasn't like the ability to look at connect dots and look at a broad array of evidence and be able to see things like we can now. So what we did, we took pictures of John Wong, for example, and Charlie Tree and some of these other characters, and talked to the human rights advocates, people who had gone to jail and things like that. They knew who John Wong was. His name was Wan Jianan, and which was kind of mind-boggling at that point. Here's this former political prisoner who recognized this guy who's working in the United States Commerce Department, recognized him as part of what we called princelings at that time, but that they were people who were well connected to the CCP and had special privileges. And the fact that he knew some of those people that were involved in the operations. There was a separate operation involving the import of 2,000 AK-47s. It was a secret Chinese operation run by a company called Polytechnologies. And they had given a lot of money to the Clinton administration. And while our government was running a sting operation against this illegal importation of the 2,000 AK-47s, our State Department leaked to these illegitimate gun smugglers that we were stinging them. So it blew the operation up. And the people who were running it, they were intelligence guys working with U.S. Customs. They were furious when they found out that it was, and we broke that story. It appeared in a lot of publications after that, but we broke that story. We found on the ground that it had been leaked by our State Department to Polytechnologies. And a guy named Wang Chin was the head of it. And he had actually met with President Clinton, didn't speak a word of English, but he had met with President Clinton and his company and made illegal donations, or at least we tracked. There was sufficient evidence that money had come from him to the Democrats. And it was his company about to be stung in this U.S. Customs operation over the AK-47. It was Operation Dragonfire was what it was called. If you look it up, there was a lot written about it. But we uncovered it and found that it was our State Department that leaked to the Chinese gun smugglers that we were about to bust them, and it blew up the whole operation. And that was an amazing story in itself. And other than even Vanity Fair wrote about it, but there was never a congressional investigation. There was a couple of big congressional investigations overall, but none of them focused on the actual crimes. None of them focused on how do you prosecute people who leaked to our enemies that we were about to sting them. And that was mind-boggling. And the Reno Justice Department was running the criminal investigations into the Clinton administration. And at one point, I guess we've gone a long way down this old trail. I thought we'd spend more time on the new stuff. But at one point, Louis Freeh, President Clinton's own FBI director, told Congress that they could not tell their boss, meaning Janet Reno, what they were doing because it would go straight to the people under investigation. Nothing. We got nothing from that. There was the Bush administration came into office, did not do any ex post facto investigation or criminal investigation on this. But here you had the FBI director saying he could not tell the attorney general that he had found that the president and the vice president were involved in a basically treason because she would tell the people they were investigating. None of that stuff went anywhere. And then fast forward 16 years later, that same party that covered this up was accusing Donald Trump of colluding with Russia. And I actually wrote a piece for the Washington Examiner that appeared in the Examiner on Election Day 2016 that laid all of this out, that they were making these wild accusations about Trump and Russia, but in fact, Hillary Clinton herself had been colluding with a foreign country that was far more dangerous, and that was China. Still, no legs to that story. What should have been a humongous what should be a daily talking point of the Republican Party, they helped the Democrats sweep it under the rug instead of going out and calling the Democrat Party the most corrupt institution in U.S. history and talking about all these things that they've done over the years. They help them cover it up. And of course, people have a short institutional memory. So Republicans let Democrats reset everything they've done every election. It's like nothing they did in the past matters in this coming election. And that's kind of what I had pointed out in a separate story I wrote for Forbes in 2016. And that was Hillary Clinton accusing Trump of colluding with Russia. We had just had 8 years of Obama being a sock puppet for Putin and Hillary Clinton as well. They had their reset. They ran for office in 2008 on the basis that Bush had been too tough on Putin. So they win the election. He invades South Ossetia, north of the north part of the country of Georgia. And Clinton comes in and Obama, and they immediately reset relations with Russia. Shortly after that, the FBI finds that they have a 10 Russian man sleeper cell operating inside the United States. The FBI rolls them up. And before they could even interrogate the spies, Obama sent them back to Moscow to a hero's welcome. You want to talk collusion? There's a big piece of collusion right there. And then 2 years after that, of course, the famous video of Obama not realizing his mic was on. He's telling Medvedev, "Tell Vlad I'll be more flexible after this election."
Right.
There's collusion. That's the very definition of collusion. And not one Republican brought this up.
So this was all pre, Trump's first term. Do you think if these stories had been leaked today or reported on today, these things were coming out today, do you think that the Republicans would still brush it under the rug, or do you think they would actually do something with it?
I've reported it over and over. I reported it in 2016. Both of those things I reported in 2016 before the 2016 election. I continued to press on it, and something very few people realize. But in the Mueller file, very deep in the Mueller file, once Trump was elected, Putin convened an emergency meeting to find out if they knew anybody that knew Trump. That was in the collusion file that nobody talks about. Not even Trump. I don't know what the hell is wrong with these people. I actually met just by happenstance at a party. I met at the time, this is 2017, I think. I met his guy who'd just been promoted. He was the second or third ranking person on the comms team for Trump. And I said, why do you not have that video of Obama telling Medved he'll tell Vlad I'll be more flexible after the election, rolling in the press room in response to every question about Russia collusion? This guy laughed it off and he said, well, we don't take the press very seriously. That's why we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders as our spokeswoman. And I said, well, you better take them seriously because they're going to kick your ass if you don't. And they did, of course. And they were caught off guard constantly. So they seem at times unhelpable, which, is very bizarre. But they've gotten better.
No, but
they've gotten a lot better this time. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
I was going to say, so you're really kind of describing, obviously, well, you're describing some of the issues that came out publicly. It's always a challenge, isn't it, to connect the dots where you, for example, establish that there's this payment or their campaign contributions, and that there's in fact a quid pro quo. Is that a fair problem, or I mean, how do you go about that as an investigative reporter to kind of establish that this event over here is connected with that event over there?
Well, in the case of China and the decontrolling the weapon systems, we had officials, some of them had been speaking to me off the record for a long time. And in one case, a really good, smart investigator for the Defense Intelligence Agency named Michael Maloof, he had been telling me off the record for a long time, we know that we could show you the connection between the money and the weapon systems, because the Defense Technology Security Administration was objecting to Clinton's decontrolling of these weapon systems. They were objecting, and then they were being told, shut up. And fortunately, there was a great patriot named Dr. Peter Leitner who was working inside the the DITSA. And he was writing the analysis saying this technology cannot be transferred to China. It will be turned into X. In one case, it was Plant 85. He wrote the analysis and said, if we allow them to buy Plant 85, this McDonnell Douglas manufacturing plant in Columbus, Ohio, China wanted it really bad, and they were going to pay. They were making deals with McDonnell Douglas. We had Peter Leitner writing an analysis saying they will use this to manufacture silkworm missiles that'll be used against us. And he was overridden by the politicos at the Clinton administration. So they transferred Plant 85, and then Maloof discovers the plant in China being at a location where they were manufacturing silkworm missiles. And so the case kind of blew up on Clinton at that time, but it didn't stop them from doing all sorts of things. They were decontrolling computer processing systems that allowed them to test nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles and MIRV bus technology, that sort of thing. Allowed them remarkable advances in their military. When Clinton took office in '92, China basically had a junkyard army. In 8 years, they fast forwarded to being 2 or 3 generations behind us, and now they're about 1 generation behind us. And that is thanks to entirely to the corrupt Democrat parties decontrolling weapons technology to China and doing it for money. And you can sit down and show there's a reason why there's a reason why someone would ignore the advice of civil servants who are there to say, here's what we can't send to them. Here's what we cannot let our enemies have. This technology we cannot let our enemies have because it will be used against us and it's dangerous. and then they do it anyway, and there's money involved. You find out they were getting illegal donations. That's a pretty strong case, one that you could almost indict somebody with.
So, switching topics over to your television producer hat for a little bit. So, last night was the State of the Union, and there's a lot of people praising a lot of these moments that Trump kind of set up. The biggest one being, and I think we'll be seeing this in a lot of campaign ads going into the midterms, this moment of, stand up if you agree that the purpose of our government is to represent the American people before the illegal immigrants. And you have, one side overwhelmingly standing up and the other side just sitting still. So what's your take on this as a Politico and as a TV producer, and how is last night going to impact the elections this year?
Well, if Republicans, it was a smart move. Some people have called it hackneyed and all that, but that's how you have to deal with the Democrats. It was a smart move, and if Republicans were smart, they would weaponize it and use it against every single Democrat. Every place that there is a vulnerable Democrat, I would have ads running now that showed them, did they stand up for you or did they stand up for illegal aliens? And, the fact of the matter is, Trump is losing this battle. In fact, that's why they had to pull ICE out of Minneapolis. They're losing the public relations battle because they are so inept at going out and making the Democrats pay for what they're doing. They instead of going out and saying those protesters that Democrats put on the street, and they did, was a Democrat operation, they're standing up for child molesters. They're out on the street protesting child molesters. Why did Republicans have their own protesters on the street holding signs, you're defending child molesters? Why are you defending why do you want children molested? Why do you want people here who are molesting children? Take the worst of it and make them pay for it. Make them pay. I call it taking the knife away from them. You have to, if they're slashing you, you have to take the knife away from them. Republicans have never done that, but that's what they should have been doing. They should have had their own counter protesters out there throwing water on the whistle, those people with their stupid whistles. They should be out there throwing cold water on them. Make the local police come out and arrest those guys and not arrest the people who are attacking ICE. That's how you handle those things. Republicans can never do it. They'll go out there. They probably could have had 10-1 protesters and outnumbered them, encircled them, made them look like fools, won the PR battle that way, and then America would have won. And then that's Democrats sitting down, for the American people, defending the American people against illegal aliens would have been all the worse. But Republicans just are not good at this is a war. We're in 5th generation warfare now. And that's what is fun. Foreign influences are funding these protests, and Republicans are sitting on their hands and refuse to do anything about it.
Could you talk a little bit about what you're working on professionally these days? Are there particular investigations that you're following up on?
Yes. Well, I've been investigating Antifa for the last 6 years. I'd gone undercover and photographed some of their operations. It wasn't very effective because in order to actually get deep into Antifa, you have to break laws, essentially. They're kind of like a street gang in that sense. They have high standards for a high bar, I should say, not standards, but a high bar that you have to overcome to actually become one of them. But I did get close to some Antifa cells, and these are groups that are being funded. Many of them are college professors, and again, it comes down to that war, the information warfare that conservatives are not equipped to fight. And if you mentioned it to them, they would resist. They would tell you, we aren't going to stoop to that level. And that's why they're going to lose. I've gotten to the point where I think the only way we can save the country is to have independents run for office and have a robust independent candidacy program. I came up with this idea back in 2009, 2010, when Obama first got elected. I had two prominent Democrats come to me and say, will you join us in starting a third party? One of them was Pat Goodell, who's now passed away. The other is still alive and still a prominent Democrat. But they were disgusted with the corruption in their own party and thought that might be a way to do something about it. And I thought about it and I said it wouldn't work. But the way it would work is if we launched a television show similar to American Idol. It would be American Idol for politics. And we called it Vox Populi, where we would go around the country, me from the right and Goodell from the left, and we would on TV interview candidates and do the same sort of thing, have people vote for their favorite candidate to run for the Senate or the House or the presidency. And then people would have a vested interest in an independent candidate. They would have the notoriety and the face recognition to challenge the Republicans and the Democrats. And we thought we had a deal with Big Fox in LA. We came really close, but nope, we could not sell it to the networks, even though everybody in the entertainment industry loved the idea. And Roger Ailes said to me, he said at the time, he said, you're going to have trouble because the people on the West Coast are all in entertainment. They're all very liberal. And I said, yeah, but I've found from interviewing, and we've interviewed a lot of showrunners, and I said, everybody thinks this will vindicate their worldview. And then the lights went on for him at that moment. He got it then. And he said, yeah, let's try to sell this to Big Fox. And we came close. They liked the idea, but I think their fear of the Republicans and the Democrats caused them to nix it in the end.
Hey Scott, I just got a question from an old friend of ours, Jamie McDonald.
Oh yeah.
Jamie says hello and asks how you've been doing, and how do you view coming down the pike for the midterm elections? Do you think the Republicans will hold the House and Senate, or do you think it's going to get flipped to the Democrats?
It's good to hear from you, Jamie. It's been a long time. I don't think it looks good for Republicans because Democrats are desperate. It's like 2020 all over again, where they knew if Trump was going to be reelected, the statute of limitations had not run out on some of the crimes they had committed in 2016 and 2017 with regards to the FBI and Brennan at the CIA and Clapper at DHS. And so they were likely to run into some problems. And so they're going to fight vigorously. And I think the Democrats are going to win unless Republicans get smart overnight and start fighting this as a serious propaganda war, because it is. And that's what they've got to do if they expect to win, hold on to the seats in the House and the Senate. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a miracle that Trump won in 24, and otherwise we would have been in serious trouble.
And Jamie, as a follow-up, have you written any books in the last 30 years, or are you planning to write a book about your experience over the years?
I co-wrote one with Peter Leitner called Shadow Government, What Obama Doesn't Want You to Know About His Czars. And it was one we wrote fairly quickly in about 3 months in 2009. And it was a dossier on the czars that were not confirmed by the Senate and their backgrounds, because a lot of them had very left-wing backgrounds and a lot of stuff that the press did not cover. And then in 2012, I wrote Promoting Decline, Obama versus America. And that came out just before the 12 election. It was kind of a warning to people that Obama was seeking the decline of the United States. and not just managing it, but helping to promote the things that would destroy us. And I think we've seen the vindication of that notion in the years since then.
So
let me ask. Go ahead, Jackie. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, because I was gonna go to plugs. So go ahead.
Oh, well, let me ask, in the 30 years of being an investigative journalist, is it easier now to get topics, information out, or do you end up getting lost in the crowd? So how's it changed over all this time?
I think I'm somewhat surprised that what generally gets a story traction is the political interest. So Democrats will promote a stringer for the Village Voice if they report on any wild accusation about a Republican. They'll give them instant credibility. Republicans don't do that for journalists who break important information that would help them, and that has always surprised me. But if you look at like that kid Nick Shirley in Minneapolis, he's a young man, he's inexperienced, and CNN kind of rolled him because he was unprepared. If he had had a little bit of help and counseling in this, he could have turned it into a significant investigation that they could not have mocked their way out of. And that's the kind of thing that you need, though, is you've got to have your ducks in a row, and you've got to be able to prove it. That's one of the reasons why you rarely ever see me on MSNBC or CNN. They used to have me on all the time, and I would crush the other side, and they stopped having me because I could make arguments, and they prefer conservatives who can't make arguments that they can beat up on. Scott Jennings being a rare exception. He seems to really do well on CNN, but I used to go on and debate those guys, but it's been years. They don't want vigorous debate. They want they want a Michael Steele, who rolls over and or is a weak representative of the other side.
Right.
So we're getting to the part of the show where we go to, how can people find you? Do you have a website? Where can people go if they want to see more of what you're working on?
Scott Wheeler News Inquisitor. I have Substack, Scott Wheeler News Inquisitor. I'm going to be putting out some more stuff. I've got a couple of new things, but I'm going to be putting more stuff out, and we will be showing up. There's a lot of my work on Rumble. You can get on terrorism, China, and also Washington Times I write for occasionally. But I'm going to this new channel we're launching, Scott Wheeler News Inquisitor, is and Scott Wheeler Newscap Group is another. Those two entities are basically the same. And on Twitter, you can find me at Scott Wheeler. It's at Newscap Group. I'm sorry, at Newscap Group is the Twitter handle. So I'll be putting out more information now. We're kind of closing up some investigations, and we're going to start putting this stuff out.
Awesome.
Great.
Scott,
Mark,
do you still like Italian food? Because there is a great restaurant out in Perry Hall. We love it. We go there. We've been there several times. It's called Missoni's. It's out in Perry Hall, Maryland. It's probably for you about an hour and a half away, but it's well worth the food.
Perry Hall, I was going to say, isn't that way up north of Baltimore?
It's near Towson.
Near Towson, yeah. I thought it was up there quite a ways. Well, we'll have
and
to get
so
place
they've got great food, great people, great atmosphere. Jackie, wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Mark, what's the club got going on?
Well, we have Pizza and Politics coming up first Thursday, so that will be in another week.
Yep, and we have
8 days
Catherine
from now.
Mortensen. Yeah.
Yep.
Catherine Mortensen from MRC is speaking on Women's History Month in media. and media biases.
Nice. That's awesome. Cool. And for the YR hat, yeah. Well, my big humble brag of the day is we had over 100 young Republicans file for office in Maryland for all kinds of different roles. So we're very excited about that, including myself. Yes, I was peer pressured into running for Central Committee. Stay in school, people. Don't let peer pressure get to you. Otherwise, you'll end up running for office. Right? And also, I'm giving everyone very ample time. The Maryland Young Republicans Christmas Gala will be on December 19th. I know. Contracts, right? At the Westin in
Avoid the rush.
So nobody can take our date. We
What
put
day
our
is it
stamp
again?
on it first. December 19th.
December 19th. That's a great.
Yes.
Is that
Write
you're not
the calendars
conflicting with
down.
Hanukkah, are you?
No. Since when do I know all the Jewish holidays off the top of my
That's
head?
true.
I'm
That's
a horrible
true.
Jew. We've been over this. Anyway, all right. Well, Scott, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
Mark has
we
something.
will
Didn't
be
Mark have
back.
something to
No,
say?
Oh,
Oh,
no, you're
okay.
good. We will be
It's a
back.
pleasure
next
being
week.
with you guys. Good to talk to you.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone. Great seeing you again, Scott.
Good to
Take
see you,
care.
Dwight.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Let's go down to Missoni, where Italian